Good morning, everyone. This is Tyrone Clark. I'm the CEO and President Founder of Broker's Choice of America, and welcome to today's presentation. You have received probably an invitation to attend, and the title of our presentation is, "We have the highest income, highest production per agent program in the nation." So that information is correct. This is the #1 program in the whole country. And what does that mean? That means that the advisors who use this program are right now on a national scale writing the most amount of production per agent. And I'm going to introduce the program in just a couple of minutes, and I want to explain why is this program so successful. The reason this is as successful is most agents today who are writing lots of business are using seminars. They're using dinner seminars of every sort, as everybody knows. And what's happening today is the consumers are now getting softer on the seminar process because they have gotten every week lobster dinner invitations, steak dinner invitations, shrimp dinner invitations, you name it. And so this has been going on, as everybody knows, for a long time. And we all know at some point that's going to take its toll a bit, getting so many invitations every week. And what's happened is a transition where consumers want to attend a class from an unbiased source as opposed to a dinner invitation. After a consumer goes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dinners, and they know the process afterwards, they kind of say, you know, I want a little more serious information. So I'm going to introduce you today to an organization that's called the American Financial Education Alliance. I'm going to introduce Mr. Rick McEllihan, who is the creator and founder of the American Financial Education Alliance. And Rick is going to explain how his entire program works, and he's going to walk you through everything. And of course, you're all going to have many questions. And I just want you to know what we've done is instead of answering all those questions on a group basis, we have made arrangements so that you can talk directly to Rick and his people by a phone appointment. So he's going to walk you through the whole process. So I'd like to introduce Rick McEllihan.
All right, thanks, Tyrone. I appreciate that. And man, what an awesome time to be a part of this industry, the financial services industry, and have the ability to help people the way that we do, with the economy going the way that it's going, with people actually looking at their accounts now and seeing some interest being earned on their money. Recovery certainly well behind us now, so people are actually seeing growth and being able to live their lives. And now is more than ever is a time where people they have questions. They need to know now, what do we do now? Because they still, in the back of their mind, they still remember what happened in 2008, 2009. So now people are asking questions. They're saying, how can we protect what we have? What can we do with what we have? And again, it kind of echoes, Tyrone, what you said, that people are they're more serious about it these days. It's not about eating food or going to a dinner or anything like that. People are more serious about understanding their finances, understanding their money, understanding what to do with their money, and also finding somebody that they can trust to give them information. Because again, they've all had this bad experience from 2008, and even though there's a little bit of a difference between where we are now and when that happened, they still remember it like it was yesterday. Anytime someone loses, almost 40% of their assets, they're not going to forget that. And so now people are proactive, and that really echoes to what you were saying about, it's not, the dinner seminars aren't really producing as much as an academic style format does. And that's what we're going to talk about today. A little bit about me. Many people, some of you on the call might have heard of me, some of you may not. This may be the first time. So just again, to introduce myself, I got my start in the finance department back in 1990. I joined the military, and I worked in the finance department on these three different ships, the last of which was the aircraft carrier, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, down there on the right-hand side. And that actually, where it says Big Stick right there, is actually the ship's crew that actually formed in their white uniforms. We formed the the name Big Stick, which is the motto for Teddy Roosevelt, walk softly and carry a big stick. And then they flew a jet over and took those pictures. So that was actually, actually real-time stuff that happened there. So I really enjoyed that. That's how I kind of cut my teeth in the finance department and finance and learning about how to manage money, assets, and things like that. And then from there, when I got out, I started at a company called Bankers Life and Casualty, which many of you may have known. They've probably been around now for about 140 years or so. They're kind of a Medicare shop primarily. They work with seniors. And from there, I realized that I wanted to really grow myself into being more of a holistic advisor. So I started a company here in Charlotte, North Carolina called Legacy First Financial Group, and that's an operation that we still run today. So for many of you on the call, what I like to always make clear is that I'm just like you. I'm an advisor. I've tried different programs and different things, where it promises a whole lot to change my practice and up my income and, change my family life and all these things, make me spend more time with my family. And what wound up happening with a lot of those programs is that I spent thousands of dollars into it, and then the program kind of went away, and I was just left, I guess, out of money and without any real improvement because the program had flaws in it. And so what I did from there, I decided back in 2010, we were having great success with Legacy First Financial Group. I had, we managed well over 400 clients with assets, and we're a holistic advisory firm. And I wanted to find a way to give back to the community. So I started a company called the American Financial Education Alliance, or what we call AFIA for short. Many of you may have heard about that. We've been around now, as I mentioned, since 2010. And it started out with just us teaching a local course, one course, and we started teaching, and I think we started in a business. And then the business said, hey, this would be great. Someone at the business said, this would be great at the church that I go to. And so we went there, and then someone said, this would be great at the organization that we belong to. So we went there, and the next thing I know, over this last 8 to 10 years, it's grown and morphed into really this big educational organization that we have right now about over 200 advisors who teach financial education classes for us, where we started with only one course. We have over 30 to offer. Last year, we were blessed to be able to provide our financial education to over 50,000 families. And year to date, we've probably educated well over 500,000 families all across the country. So that's the impact that AFIA has, and it's our mission to provide unbiased financial education to the general public. And so we're kind of really proud about that. In 2016, as you all know, the Department of Labor put out the new fiduciary rule, and it really was a start to what is now a paradigm shift in the industry that we work in, where everything now, it's all about the fiduciary buzz. Are you a fiduciary? If you haven't been asked whether or not you're a fiduciary yet, it's just a matter of time. In fact, we believe firmly that by the end of this year, with the DOL coming out with a new rule, the SEC coming out with new rules, NAIC coming out with new rules, and then also various states coming up with their own fiduciary rules, it's going to be a paradigm shift to where it may even be necessary or a requirement to not only be a fiduciary, but certainly to be able to prove it. And so what we did in 2016, since we're already accustomed to building and developing financial education courses with AFIA, since that's what we do for the general public, we started to get a lot of questions from advisors who were teaching for us, and they were asking questions about the new DOL rule at the time, before it was vacated, and how that was going to affect their practice. So we put together a course to explain that and explain what triggers fiduciary responsibility and all these other things. And I thought, well, this is a really comprehensive course, and it takes quite a bit of study. So if you're going to spend that much time doing that, then it makes sense to really get something out of it to prove that you've done it, and also to prove to your clients that you are, in fact, a fiduciary. And that's where we came up with the Certified Financial Fiduciary designation. And so these are the three, this is kind of my background of what I focus on. And today what I'm going to do is, again, I want to, first of all, stop just for a moment and thank all of you for taking time out of your busy day. As an advisor myself, I know how hard it is to carve out an hour of your time to get on a program like this or get on a webinar like this and really listen to something that you really have no idea whether or not it's going to provide value. So I promise today that we're going to try to provide you with as much value as possible. I'm going to give you 4 secrets that I myself here in Charlotte use with my partner in our day-to-day practice, but also the over 200 advisors across the country that also use. And I think, because we have these things kind of figured out and we have that longevity of actually trying this stuff, not only ourselves, but proving it time and time again in different demographics in every state across the country, I'm going to be able to show you something that I know that if you follow it, it'll work. And I'm going to share with you that, and hopefully you'll see some value in that by the time we're done today. So the 4 secrets I'm going to show you is how to easily gain trust and credibility of your prospects and clients. I'm going to show you what I consider the best elevator pitch ever. I'm going to show you how you can consistently add at least, at a minimum, $2 million in annuity premium, or it should say plus assets under management to your practice on a consistent basis. And that's the thing. It's what a lot of people we find need is something that's consistent. You know, there's all types of programs out there, and maybe they work in January, but they don't work in July, or maybe they work in, you know, there's all these different things that can cause a program to fail or not really fit your practice. But we're going to show you how to consistently do that and how we do it across the country, which is why Tyrone is saying, you know, this is the best program hands down compared to anything out there that does what we do. And I don't say that to brag. I'm just saying it because certainly we've put the work in to make this happen. And the way I guess the way we're evaluated is that we can do it consistently in every market. And we can certainly attest to that. And then the other thing I'm going to show you guys today before we're done is also, if you write, there's other things that come out of this. Like I mentioned, assets under management. So if you're securities, there's certainly a ton of ways to gain or grow assets under management. But also if you write life insurance too, we're going to show you how to average 15 to 20,000 in target life premium cases in this same program today. So again, thank you for your time. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. And then, as Tyrone mentioned, at the end of this, we'll set up an opportunity for you guys to set up calls so that you can call in and spend some time getting answers to your specific questions about your area and so forth. So, you know, one of the things that I've found in doing this now since 2010 is that we found some consistent problems. When we talk to the over 200 advisors who are with us now, and then just on the road shows and things that I do, we get some really consistent questions. We can identify some problems. One of the things that we notice is that you all have great products to offer. Tyrone's group with BCA, they have all of the products. They have access to all of that stuff. So you certainly have great products to offer. You have tons of knowledge and experience to share. Our industry almost demands that we stay on top of our education. So that's kind of a thing that we all have. As difficult as this industry is, you have to have a strong desire to help people, or else you wouldn't even make it past the first year. I mean, you really have to want to help people understand their finances to stay in this business. And so these are things that we found that were consistent amongst most of the people that we spoke to. But here were some of the issues. Number one, most of the time when we ask people, you know, what's the biggest challenge that you have as a financial advisor or an insurance agent? Most of the time, 95% of the time, someone's going to say not enough people to see, at least not consistently. And so it's very hard to grow a practice. It's very hard to budget. It's very hard to really take care of your family and do the things you need to do if you're just not seeing enough people. And then what's worse than that is even if you are seeing a lot of people, gaining their trust is a big challenge, you know, because they're getting bombarded now, especially with social media. You know, the dinner seminars that Tyrone was talking about where people are sending them lobster dinners and all this stuff. They're getting bombarded with all of this information about things that could be wrong with their finances, things they could do to make their finances better, all of this stuff. So it's very difficult to gain trust or to separate yourself from your competition. And the problem is if you do not do that, if you don't find a way to separate yourself from your competition, to establish trust and credibility right off the bat, you're going to hear what I consider some of the most, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times you'll hear what I consider some of the most dreaded words in the business. And one of those is, of course, my client wants to think about it. How many times have you sat down and you've gone through your fact finder and you're on maybe that second appointment and you think, hey, look, I've solved all of your needs, your issues and everything. And the one thing that they do is say, you know what, this all sounds great, but I want to think about it. And then maybe 2 weeks go by, 2 or 3 weeks go by, you're trying to call them, you're trying to get them to come back in for that second appointment or that third appointment where hopefully you'll be closing and writing the business. But for some reason, they're on vacation, they're gone out of town, and then finally, when you finally get them on the phone, they say the other one. I think we'll just leave it like it is. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you know, we kind of went over everything. You know, when I first spoke to you, you didn't like the advisor you were with, or there was all these other things that came up. And the bad thing is that in some cases, even though they're sitting in a class or sitting with you, and maybe you're talking to them about something they've never heard about, like Social Security planning or long-term care planning or whatever it might be, and maybe their current advisor has never told them about that, or they're not even happy with them. But for some reason, after a couple of weeks, they've decided that rather than move and take your advice, they would rather stay with the person that they already had who never told them about the things that you told them about in the first place, or someone that they didn't even like. The only reason that can come down to it is either you did a really bad job of presenting, which I don't know that that's the case most of the time, but the biggest thing is that there's just a lack of trust or lack of credibility that was established on the front end. And here's what Zig Ziglar says about that. Everybody knows Zig Ziglar. He's the sales guru of all time, and he says every sale has 5 basic obstacles: no need, no money, no hurry, no desire, and no trust. And the biggest thing about that is that you have to, it's whether we like it or not, it's all about the perception. It's about how people see us. So if you're looking at this picture right now, some of you are going to look at that and you're going to see immediately the princess, right, with the feather on her head. And some of you are going to look at this picture and not be able to see the princess at all, but you're going to be able to see the witch that's there. And depending on how you see that, it's, how you look at this, that's the perception that you have about this entire thing. And sometimes that's reflected on us, especially similarly because of, what happened to our industry in 2008, how people view us nowadays based on that. When the consumer did everything that they were told to do, they diversified their portfolios, their allocations were correct, they had everything set up, they did everything we asked, and then still they lost 40%, 38% on average of their assets. So they're a little bit jaded. And so they look at us, sometimes when they see us, they see the witch, right? Even though we inside, we may not feel that way and certainly aren't acting that way, they may see us this way. So you start to ask yourself, it's funny when I do this live, I tell people, do they avoid you at parties? If you are at a party and someone asks you what you do, if you say, I'm an insurance salesman or I'm an advisor, they pretty much will run from you. That's why people had to come up with those creative elevator pitches, right? The elevator pitch was designed to elicit, to summarize what you do in about 30 seconds or so, and then elicit a follow-up question, right? So you were supposed to be able to say whatever that elevator pitch was, and then someone was supposed to ask you, how do you do that? And so I've had people come up with very creative elevator pitches and give those to me in my live class. One guy said, I use creative indexing strategies to fortify people's futures. And so that sounds really flashy until someone says, well, how do you do that? And he says, well, I use index annuities. Okay. Well, so then at that party, that person leaves you, and then they go back over to the other person, maybe at the bar or whatever, and they say, hey, I saw you talking to Tom over there. What does he do? Oh, he sells insurance. So regardless of what your elevator pitch was, they still boil it down to, the fact that it's one of those things that's associated with this industry that we're in. Right? So you have to start asking yourself, how do you describe what you do? How do you make people look at the picture right here and see the princess and not the witch when they're referring to you? And then really, when you're describing yourself, are you any different than your competition? Remember, we talked about establishing trust and credibility right off the bat. How can you separate yourself from all the other people, all the other noise that's out there? And that's the thing. We have to really start to stand out from the crowd and try to change and control the perception. And that's what we do. And the over 200 guys and girls in our organization, we stand out using our program. So here's the thing, and here's the secret number 1 for you guys I told you I'd share with you. Here's what I consider the best elevator pitch ever. Now, in the last event that I did, a guy said he had a really quick one. I asked him, he said, I'm a financial cartographer. And of course, that's going to spark the next question for me, but it was a confusing one because I wasn't sure what a cartographer was, so I don't think it had the actual result that he wanted. But here's mine. If someone comes up to me at that same party and they ask me, hey, Rick, what do you do? I use 5 simple words. And those words are, I teach at Pfeiffer University. Now, if you are in, let's say, if you're in Charlotte and you're from here, you're going to recognize what Pfeiffer University is. You already know that it's kind of a well-known university here. But that could be, if you're in Ohio, it could be, I teach at Ohio State University or whatever. So just kind of implant that there. But here in Charlotte, I say I teach at Pfeiffer University. Now, I'm going to pause for a second. I just want to ask you, when I say that to people, what do you think is the very next question that they're going to ask me. And it's 99% of you will say the exact same thing. What do you think the very next question is that people ask me? Let me see if I can see it get typed in here. Okay, I got some people here. Yeah, the very next question that people ask me is, what do you teach? Almost all the time, 99% of the time. And so then my answer is, I teach a comprehensive financial education course called Safe Money Principles of Retirement Planning. So now what have I done with these 5 words? This is how I'm controlling the perception. You know, what I've done is, number one, I've associated myself with teaching at a higher university. Okay, so people know Pfeiffer University, so I've given myself credibility just by association of saying that I teach at Pfeiffer. So I've gotten that credibility. The other thing that I've done is I've changed the perception, and now I'm being viewed as an expert because I teach at financial planning, because I teach it at a place of higher learning. So with those 5 words, I'm communicating completely different and controlling the perception. So then when they leave me at that party, and they go over to the bar or whatever, and they say, hey, I saw you talking to Rick over there. What does he do? What does he do? Oh, he teaches at Pfeiffer University. Oh, really? What does he teach? He teaches financial planning. So just those 5 words have built credibility. It's built trust. It's elevated me to the status of an expert, because I'm not teaching just anywhere. I'm teaching at a university. And then what I do, I also teach in libraries, and I teach in senior centers and places like that. When I'm teaching in a library, I also tell that audience that, oh, by the way, from time to time, I also teach at Pfeiffer University. When I'm teaching at Pfeiffer University, I also tell people at Pfeiffer University, oh, by the way, I also teach at the entire Charlotte regional library system on a regular basis. So then I'm also building credibility by leveraging all the different places that I teach. So this is, and now obviously you have to be part of a program that's teaching to be able to use this, but it certainly changes the game, in my opinion, for all of us when we tell people what we do. That's secret number 1. So what is the solution? It's creating the right channels. The solution to Zig Ziglar's 5 obstacles is that you have to create the right channel. When people come to you, prospects come to you, if they come to you through the right channel, you can handle all of the obstacles or objections that people normally have. And we do that by AFIA, the American Financial Education Alliance. Now, what we are is an IRS-approved 501c3 nonprofit organization. We offer an academic training program, educational workshops. We don't do seminars, we do workshops, or classes, we call them, especially when we're teaching in the colleges. But we also teach in libraries, parks and rec centers, senior centers, anywhere where we can set up in an academic style format. So we're never in any hotels, and we're certainly never in any restaurants. And we do not serve any food. Our courses, depending on which one you choose, is going to be between 2 and 3 hour sessions. Our college course can be taught over 2 or 3 weeks. The others can be taught in 1 day, in just a couple of hours. One of the differences, or a difference maker between us and dinner seminars, is that attendees actually pay to attend, not to eat, but just to attend. They pay a tuition. So there's no meals involved. You're going to get the credibility. You'll be viewed as an instructor versus a salesman, especially if you use the elevator pitch that we talked about. And the average workshop premium, premium per workshop, is going to be $750,000 compared to $350 for dinner seminars on average. Plus, you get life insurance premium and assets under management. So that's just what we call a solution. I'll briefly try to tell you guys a little bit about how it works. Now, primarily what we do is strategic blast marketing campaigns. Our primary method right now is direct mail. Direct mail has been around for hundreds of years. It's not broken, despite what anybody says. We've also tried newspapers, radio. We've even done some digital. But what we found is that in order to get the best targeted audience, direct mail still hands down beats them all. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in comparison later. The way the system works is it attracts targeted attendees based on a special demographic that we use. Depending on the class, it's age 55 to 70. And they have to have $100,000 in income-producing assets or more. And by income-producing assets, what I mean is that those are assets that can be moved. A net worth, a lot of people, our competition especially, they use net worth lists, which means that they can look at a list and say that this person has a net worth of $1 million. The only problem is that 800 million of that, or 800,000 of that money is tied up either in their home, or sometimes it's farmland, or sometimes it's other things that are coming up with this number, but it's not actual assets that you can do anything with. We handle online course registrations, live registrations. Again, people for our college class especially pay tuition anywhere from $40 to $59. We teach in libraries, universities, park districts, anywhere again like that we can teach in a academic style format. We prefer community colleges over large universities just because the campuses are usually too large and it's hard to, especially for a senior, to find a specific room. So we like to use community colleges. But the way, and this is the biggest thing, and we teach you guys how to do this. This isn't something that we hand to you and you kind of have to go learn it and train yourself. We actually have training and everything that teaches you how to do this. Our format and the way that we do this, it's naturally designed to set up personal strategy sessions with the instructor so that you can ask specific questions about what you learned in the class, and then that process naturally transitions students into clients because they need help implementing the strategies that they learned in the class. It seems very simple at the high level, but when you really learn our process and how this thing works, you'll see how we can do it consistently all across the country. This is our flagship course. This is the one that I mentioned when I talked about my elevator pitch, Safe Money Principles of Retirement Planning. This is our college course, and it's a fully comprehensive college course. It talks about everything from avoiding the most common financial mistakes. It talks about cash flow, risk tolerance, setting goals, IRS tax codes. It talks about everything. It's comprehensive, but it's not overwhelming, and that's the main thing. You don't want to force feed a lot of information to your audience because then they get the kind of the deer in the headlights. And you have to be good enough when you're designing this stuff to make sure that if it's handled over a 2-week period, that you don't give them too much information to where they don't come back the second day. So this is a really drawn out process. We actually had a professional course designer for college courses from UC Berkeley help us design this class. It teaches, one of the things I think that's different about this particular class here, Safe Money Principles of Retirement Planning, is that it teaches what we call the new model. And the new model is designed to where basically your prospects, the people in your class, the exercises that are built into the class have the students tell you where they want their money to be or how they want it to be allocated. Essentially, we ask them to pretend or imagine that all of their money is in one pile of cash. And then what we want them to do is separate out of that pile, want them to separate into one category what it takes to make them who they are today. So that means, the bills, living expenses, travel, small things like that. And then we also say, okay, out of that same pile of cash, we want you to imagine how much money you would be willing to wake up tomorrow and have it be gone, just lost, never to be returned. Just carve a percentage out of that same pile of cash and put it over there. And some people, that's obviously long-term money. And then now, so some people may say, okay, I want 10% in what we call a blue category. That's for my everyday. I want 30% of my money over there, which is like my stocks, equity, things like that I can lose. Subtract those two from 160% should be in the middle. That's protected. And so they literally do this by percentages, but then we have an exercise that we then say, okay, let's turn these percentages into actual dollars based on your true portfolio. And then what you'll have happen is when people come to our strategy sessions, which is like this part of the class, to come to our office to go over their new model that they designed in the class, they'll then say, oh, you know what, once I've applied this money to the model here, I might be a little bit more comfortable with, maybe 40% over here in the red category, what we call red. And so they'll adjust it, or they may say, oh, you know what, with 300, if I had $1 million and say $300,000 was in red, then, oh, you know what, maybe I don't want quite 300,000. Maybe we'll move, $100,000 into the green section. That's the protected money. But what they're doing there is they're actually telling you and convincing themselves where they want the money and how they want it to be allocated before you've ever had to mention a product or anything like that. You've just talked high level. And here's kind of what that looks like. This is the new model I spoke about. Blue would be your cash, green would be your protected money, and red is your risk money. Then they each have different ways to describe why you would put certain money in certain areas. And so again, the best thing that we love to see happen is someone, when you put the actual numbers to it, people will say, oh, you know what, Rick, I'm more comfortable having 45%, 50% of my money in red. Okay, well, that's fine. Then we can allocate that. That way they're telling you how much assets under management they want. They're telling you how many annuities and life insurance they want. They tell you what they need in money market accounts and things like that to live off of. But you get rid of the whole tug of war. You're not having to deal with, let me look at your assets. Let me help describe that. You have to use clever ways to get them to actually divulge what they have. It's part of their homework it's part of the class that they learn to do this for you. And we use this new model in every class that we teach, not just the college course. So here's some sample production from myself. This is one of the classes. This was actually one of the very first classes that we taught. And I'd like to leave this in here because a lot of you will be exposed to this for the very first time. And even when I did this for the first time, when I started this company, I was no expert at teaching. I'm just a regular guy. Like I said, I was in the military for a while. I started Banker's Life, which was all one-to-one. I never really got familiar with, I never did dinner seminars, and I was very uncomfortable in public speaking. So I love to show this one because not only did I start out doing this, but I started with one of our most difficult courses, which is the college course, because you have to do it over multiple days. So we had 7 units of 10. Now, by 7 units, that means you had about 14 people in the room. There were 7 households. The average for this college course is going to be between 7 and 12 households. So you could have anywhere from 14 to 24 people in a room, which is a good sized room. Plus, they all paid to come, so they're very serious. We saw about 4 of those people. These are just a couple of the cases that we wrote. One person had $600,000 in stock. And essentially, when they come into this class or come into the strategy sessions, they're bringing everything because, again, it's part of the homework. She told us how much she wanted in the allocation, so we basically sold $300,000 of that in stock and placed $200,000 in annuity. We did a $100,000 life index universal life contract, which was pre-funded for tax-free retirement planning. It was a $23,000 commission on that. We had another male, 60 years old. He had $525,000 in a 401k, and he was about to take early retirement. So he came to one of our classes, obviously, because they want to learn, and they want to learn from a place where they can get unbiased information. Most of the time when you see this class, especially the college class, people have an event that's about to take place. Either about to retire, somebody passed away, they inherited some money, they lost a bunch of money, they're not happy with their current advisor, so they're willing to pay money to get better information, and so that's why this works. He came in, obviously, same thing, told us what to do with his money. We rolled that over. Total earnings out of this one class, just off of those 2 classes, of course, we had more later, but $60,000 just from that one class, a little over $1.1 million in annuity premium from the same class, and our average cost, and this is why I say I put this one here, and I haven't changed it. We spent $7,500 on this. Now, the reason the cost was that high, it's nowhere near that now for you guys, but the reason it was that high is because we do all of the research and development on our end first. So this was one of the first classes. We wanted to make sure it worked, so we tried radio, newspaper, and our direct mail, combined all those things, and we tracked where all of the people came from to determine which worked best. Now we mail 4 million pieces a year, so we have even more data to collect now. But this was in the very beginning, so I like to show that because I want you guys to understand, again, you know, we're willing to spend our money here rather than make you guys our guinea pigs. We spent our money here to make sure this works so that you didn't have to experiment. We wanted to make sure that you have a program that actually works when you plug in. As long as you do what we say, it's going to work for you. So that was the college course. Now, again, we do have other courses. We have over 30 different topics to choose from. We have like a core 10, though, that most people primarily teach unless you have specific situations. So myths and facts of annuities, that's one of my favorite courses. This is actually a course that talks about myths and facts of annuities, as it says, but we're teaching classes right now. We run numbers every week in our weekly meetings, and we have people averaging 12 to 14 households in a class that talks specifically about annuities. Now, what type of person do you think is going to come to a class that says myths and facts of annuities? That's a person that either has annuities or is thinking about getting them, or, you know, is being told something, he or she has read something about annuities and they know that they exist, and so they want to learn about it. So that's a perfect class for that. Same thing with understanding your IRA. You know, people who have IRAs want to understand those. We just had a guy who taught a guide to 401k rollovers, which is not one of our more popular classes, but we have people do it. He had, I think, 8 households in there, so 16 people in the room, husband and wife, but 8 households who are there to understand how to roll over their 401k. So, I mean, the numbers aren't, you know, 45 people in a guide to 401k rollovers, but if you have a classroom with 14 people in there, 14 couples or households, and they're there to learn about rolling over their 401ks, you have an opportunity to connect with them, to make eye contact, to make, you know, small talk. It's really intimate situations that really work, so your conversion rates are so much higher, and we'll talk about that a little later. Here's a Social Security course that we teach. This is probably one of our most popular because everyone needs it, and there's 10,000 baby boomers every day turning 62, 65, and so it fills classrooms naturally. This again is one of the first ones that we did. I actually taught this one in a senior center. We had a couple come in, 65 and 63. Net worth was $2 million. They had $800,000 in variable annuities, and we were able to roll that over. It was a $56,000 commission there. Another 64-year-old female came in. She had about $695,000. We moved $250,000 of that into an FIA, and she wanted to do some other income planning to minimize her risk, and we had $17,000 from that. So our total from this particular class, this is a Social Security class. It took us 2 hours to teach, and then we see people usually 1 hour after in 1 hour blocks or segments. We do the first meeting is just a consultation. Then after that is when we do any presentations. We had $73,000 that was earned from that 2 hour course. A little over $1 million in premium was also earned. Total average cost for this was only $2,850, and that's the average right now for all of our mini classes. Is certainly less than $3,000. One of the things what we figured out and what you'll learn is that most people think that Social Security is very difficult to teach because after you've taught, not only do you have to learn Social Security, but then after you've taught it, most people only want to come in to get their free report or whatever it is to tell them how to claim Social Security. So many people in the industry, especially using our competition, are left with, yeah, you got a big class, but you're not doing a lot of conversions because people don't understand how to make that transition. But what we teach is when you're talking about Social Security, the decision that people are about to make when it comes to claiming Social Security is bigger than just when to claim or start your benefits. What you're really talking about with Social Security is income planning, retirement income planning. So it's a piece of the puzzle of retirement income planning in general. And so what we teach you how to do is to plant the seeds throughout this 2 hour course to keep referencing the fact that Social Security is just one part of building an entire retirement income plan. And so in order to come up with the best decision for claiming, you will have to consider the rest of the plan. And so our course is designed to do that. And that's how we're able to transition and actually talk to people about annuities that they have and things like that. Other people don't do that. Other people just say, yeah, I can get you, 50 people, 60 people in a room, and then good luck. Do what you do. But we'd rather have 25 to 30 households in a room and then tell you exactly how to transition them and tell you exactly how to teach the class so that you can get the best benefit, and so can they. And that's, to me, I think that's the most important way to do that. Plus, what a lot of people do is they use Social Security to build their pipeline for their college classes. So you invite people to the Social Security class, and then you automatically enroll them or invite them to come to your college class, which is that 2-day course, and it's really comprehensive, and it talks about all things retirement planning. So there's a couple of ways to do this. Me personally, here in our office, we're able to just do it without even building a pipeline, but it certainly works for a lot of people across the country. Here is secret number 2. I'm going to show you, I mentioned that we'd show you how to add 2 million in production consistently. Here's what our numbers say. Over 200 guys, and we're doing 4 million pieces of mail. If you teach 4 classes per year, you should add another 2 million in annuity premium plus assets under management to your practice. So the average net worth, as we mentioned, is $1 million of the people that attend, but that's not what's important. What's more important is how much assets they have that can actually be moved. And we've looked at the numbers. Our college course, on average, for one class is going to move about $750,000 in annuity premium. Now, the reason we use annuity premium is just a little bit easier to do math on, but there's certainly assets under management that come into play there as well. Mini workshops is going to be about $450, so you can do the math there. If you average 1 class or 2 classes, 4 classes per year, it's easy. It's just, if you just do it the way that we tell you to do it, it's almost by default you get the 2 million. Okay? And these are average numbers, of course. Some people do a whole lot more. We have people that teach way more than just 4 classes a year. But the reason I say 4 classes is because, if you're trying a new program, the last thing but you're already somewhat successful in your practice right now, the last thing that you want to do is change everything. You've got to dance with the person you brought to the dance, but just add this on as a little bit something, a little bit of an extra thing to enhance your practice. And then what we found is that people get so much better at this that it starts to eclipse what they used to do until eventually this is all that they do. We have several people that did that, especially when it comes to dinner seminars. People graduate from those over time, and then this is the only way that they teach. Here's Rich. Rich is one of our guys in New Jersey, and he's just super excited. The amount of activity for Medicare and Social Security workshops has been fantastic, he says. He also loves the fact that he's able to assist those in need, which is really what our nonprofit is about. And this, Social Security, retirement income planning, all these things are very confusing. So him being able to help, especially in this format, as he says, is very gratifying. So we love Rich up there in New Jersey. Here's secret number 3. How do you get 50? I told you guys I'm going to show you how to do this, 15 to 20,000. If you're not doing this already, if you sell life insurance, but maybe you're struggling to get your target premiums up, then here's a way that we do it. The first thing is you have to know it's just not about the death benefit. If you're talking about, especially index universal life, but if you want to get these large premiums and you're not already doing this, we show you how to make sure that on a consistent basis you can average $15,000 to $20,000 in target premium. The reason you do it, or the way that we do it, is we have a course designed to explain the difficult parts. Life insurance has a lot of moving parts, and it's very difficult to explain to someone, even though we know as financial professionals that it's probably one of the best tools out there to help hedge against what is imminent in terms of taxes going up in the future. With $22 trillion in debt right now and the crazy national deficit we're running, it's inevitable that taxes at some point are going to have to go up. And so to be able to have that conversation with people, to not necessarily make them completely tax-free in retirement, but at least to hedge against it in some way, this course does that. And we're able to teach that in 2 hours. And then by default, you're going to average, just because of the communication and the education that they've gotten in this class, it's such an easier way to talk to them in the strategy session without having to explain all the moving parts of life insurance, because they learned it in the class in a group setting. So that's secret number 3. And people say, well, Rick, you know what? I've tried dinner seminars. I didn't like them. They kind of sucked. What's the difference? All right. So here's the difference. We compare dinner seminars in terms of our costs. And by cost, I mean cost to run the campaign, which is the mailers, the room rental, workbooks, all those things that we offer. Our average cost for an AFIA course is going to be range on the smaller end for our mini courses around $2,500, and on the higher end for our college course, because we have to mail a few more mailers, it's going to be just shy of $5,000. In comparison to a dinner seminar, you're going to spend out the door $8,000 to $10,000 to have an effective dinner seminar in a nice place where people might want to come. One of the differences, again, people actually pay a tuition to attend our classes. They're serious usually. There's usually some type of a life-changing event that's happening when they pay to attend a class, and especially to commit to attending that class for multiple days, like 2 Thursdays in a row, or 2 Tuesdays in a row, or a Thursday and half of their Saturday they're willing to sacrifice to go to a comprehensive training course at Pfeiffer University. Those people are serious. They're not in there to eat, certainly, and they're not in there to kick tires. They're in there to learn, and they're there to learn so much so that they pay to hear it from you. Then, of course, as I mentioned, there's different things, but the one thing that is of most value, I think, in this entire program and process, it's not so much the material. We've done a good job in designing all of this material. We've put countless hours in designing every one of these courses. As I mentioned, I hired a professional course writer from UC Berkeley with a PhD in course design. So we've done all that for you. The branding is there. The colors are there. We know all the fonts to make sure that seniors can read the material. All of this stuff's already taken. We've handled all the mailers, all these things. But the biggest thing that you guys need to take away from this is that the time that you spend in these courses and the way that the people come to you, it gives you an opportunity to build a relationship with them while you're in the class. They get to know you in a neutral place. You get to know them a little bit more in a neutral place. And so by the time they come to your first appointment with you, to that what we call a strategy session, they feel like they already know you. So that when you're doing your fact finder there, they already feel like they're very comfortable giving you that information. You've already built the credibility. You've already built the trust. You taught in a university, or you taught in a library. You represent a nonprofit organization. You've given them your background. They've spent a couple of hours with you. They understand the way you work, whether you're funny, whether your personalities will mesh. So when they come to see you, they already the hard part's already done. Now you're able to naturally transition them into clients, and that's a difference between dinner seminars and us. And then here's the other thing that we always, this is a new slide I just added, because we get this all the time now. People call up and they say, hey, I got this guy calling us, or this group is trying to do digital Facebook marketing. That's like the shiny object right now that everybody's kind of chasing. So I wanted to do a comparison just to really quickly show you guys what the difference is in that. Now, of course, I told you our campaigns cost $24 to less than $5,000. The average cost for a digital marketing campaign using Facebook is anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 per workshop. So we're usually going to average about a third of the cost. But here's the conversion differences, and this is, you know, if you guys are considering doing digital marketing, whether you work with us or not, give me a call. I'll tell you the pros and cons of that, so at least you can make a good decision, because I know our competition won't. They're not really our competition, though. They don't do it. It's certainly not as comprehensive as we do. But the difference in digital marketing, you're going to spend $150 to $350 per attendee. You're only going to get about a 50% show rate of those that registered to actually show up to your class. Of those, you're going to get about a 30 to 40% appointment rate and about a 10 to 20% conversion. And this is data not only that we've extrapolated from trying it ourselves, but also we were part of different programs that were doing this before they became popular. You're going to get a lot of, they're going to fill up your rooms just because they're casting a broad net. But the people are going to be less qualified because Facebook removed the income and asset filter, so you cannot target people by their income or assets anymore. So you can only target them by their interests. And that's not necessarily, anybody can have an interest in Social Security, but are they the right person to hear the material that you're teaching? Do they have assets that, when you're talking about retirement income planning, is the Social Security the only income that they're going to have, which then half the class is not even valid? You know, you lose control of the room if you have too many people, 70, 80 households. I've had people, you know, tell me that that's how many people they get. But in the back of the room, you got people rustling papers and whispering to each other. It's kind of chaotic. Less sometimes is certainly more, especially in our case. And then what's going to happen is that's fewer appointments and fewer conversions, right? Whereas if you compare to us, we're about $60 to $80 per attendee, 95 to 99% show rate. The difference there is a mini course is about 95% show rate of those that registered actually show up to the class. 99% on the college course, that's because they paid a tuition. The only time somebody's going to pay a tuition and not show up for your class is, God forbid, they have a death in the family or something like that, and we've had that happen on a rare occasion. 80% appointment rate, because you're building that relationship, you establish credibility. 80% of the people that attend your class are going to set up an appointment with you. And then if you do it right and you follow our guidelines, 40 to 60% are going to convert into client naturally. We're going to have about 20 to 25 households per class. They're targeted based on the subject matter. So the people that attend the class match up with the subject matter. That's such a huge thing that people miss all the time. You go to these places and they say, oh, Rick, just put us in front of as many people as you can. And then you go teach a class and half the people in the class check out because the material doesn't match the demographic that's in the class. That's such a big mistake with digital marketing that they're making every single day, and we do not do that. Because of that, you're able to connect with the attendees, you get the credibility, and that results in more appointments and conversions. So if you're ever wondering the difference between digital Facebook marketing, or if you're considering it, it's not that it's a bad thing, and from time to time we will add that on, especially if it's in a rural area where, you know, there's not just a lot of people that fit our demographic. We'll cast out that on top of our mail, but we certainly never do it on its own. So again, working with a nonprofit, you can harness this power. It'll open doors. For-profit competition is getting locked out of. Libraries won't even let you in if you're a for-profit, and some colleges won't either. Of course, we get a discount, and most of the time in libraries it's free. 20% savings on mail costs. So if you're spending 60, 65 cents to send out a piece of mail, we're spending 40 to 45 cents, somewhere around in there, 46 cents. And then there's just a good feeling of representing a nonprofit and giving back. Again, you know, just to pause here for a moment. I mean, this is why Tyrone was saying that this is the best program out there. We've covered all the bases for you guys. And again, I'm not bragging on myself. This is just all of the work that we've put in to make this a program that works for you guys. It has to, if it's going to be successful, it has to be, you have to be able to duplicate it. It has to be replicated in all demographics, and we've done that. So let's talk really quickly about what else you get. We've taken care of all, this is turnkey, we've taken care of all the materials. The mailers have been tried and tested. You're not experimenting. We know what works. We have those fish on there for a reason. We took the fish off one time in our numbers tank. Trust me, we've done research on fonts, colors, all of this stuff to make sure that you get the best results when we send a mailer out. You have course workbooks that match. They're branded the same. They're branded by AFIA. They match along with the presentations that you get, which we have teacher's manuals. So we tell you what to say, how to say it, when to say it. We give you a personal chapter page, which is a website of your own that matches ours so that people can do registrations online. It's branded. It puts you as a chapter president for your area. Everything is all handled. Plus, you have shirts and different things with AFIA apparel that you can buy. I always teach in an AFIA shirt. Here's one of the biggest benefits, too. Dedicated academic coordinators and consultants. These are people who basically are your assistant. So one of the biggest challenges with starting any new type of program is a lot of times you buy into the program, you watch a series of videos, and then you're supposed to hit the ground running and do all this stuff on your own. Well, you're already busy. You don't have time to book classes and call venues and check dates and all this stuff. And if you don't have an assistant, you certainly can't do it. Even if you have an assistant, he or she probably has other things that they're already supposed to do. But on top of that, excuse me, there's also supposed to be a logistics coordinator. So we've eliminated all of that. We handle all of that for you by assigning to you a personal academic coordinator and consultant. A coordinator is somebody that's going to make sure that your class, you call in or you send a form in saying, hey, I want to book my classes in May 26th, 27th, and then they go to work. Then after that, we actually analyze your numbers, and if your numbers are low or lower, then we get on a call with you and try to figure out how we can improve that. That's not just registration numbers, that's conversion numbers as well. So we do all of this stuff to coach you and make sure that you have the most successful experience you can in our program, and your academic coordinators are dedicated to do that for you. If, for instance, though, your numbers fall below 40 to 60% conversion rates, we also have weekly open office calls where not our COO, Jeremy Bryant, was on there. He talks about all the forms and things that we have, but he also ties in a lot of times some of our most successful advisors who are sharing ideas and helping people figure out things that can improve. Once we have people on this, we normally see about a 25% improvement in their conversion ratios just by offering these open office calls. I talked about the chapter pages, that's included. 24/7 live registrations, that's also included. That's something normally you'd have to pay kind of a la carte. But that's live registrations. We do online registrations. People also mail in checks. We handle all the payment processing for you, so you don't have to set up another LLC or any of that stuff. It's all handled through us. All of that's included. So let's talk. I talked a little bit earlier, some case studies about myself. But this is a guy, Ryan Moore. He's actually in, Ryan is in Franklin, Tennessee. He's one of our certified financial fiduciaries as well. When he first joined us in 2017, Ryan said, you know what, Rick, I've tried a lot of programs. I also do dinner seminars, and you guys are man, you're selling this thing. You know, you're telling me a lot of numbers, and you're saying that you can do this stuff consistently. So I'm gonna check. I'm gonna try to see if this works, and I'm gonna document every single thing that I do, and I'm gonna see not only if it works, but what works better and what doesn't work. So he kept what we now call a return on investment spreadsheet. He created this on his own, and he tracked everything from the classes that he did, the people that he saw, the products that he sold to them, all of this stuff. It's on this nice laid out spreadsheet, which we can actually give to you guys if you're interested. It's a great tool to track your business. But here's his numbers. You know, he did two campaigns. He put 3 classes on each campaign, and he did a little over $2 million in annuity premium. His total expenses was a little over $7 grand. Total commission, non-assets under management, was $277,000. So if you back out the $7,000 that he paid to send the mail campaigns out, he netted in profit of that $270,000 in commission off of just 2 campaigns. But he also brought in a little over $4 million in assets under management. Now, if you do a 1% on that, then he's probably doing $40,000 in recurring revenue off of just these 2 campaigns. So he tested us, he tried us, and he obviously tried to call our bluff, but it didn't work. Ryan's been with us now. He's one of our best. And he's certainly, you know, it's been, I don't think he's ever going to go anywhere. He loves the program. So again, 2 mailer campaigns, 6 class dates. He taught Social Security and ABCDs of Medicare. Those 2, that's probably one of our best class combinations. He teaches that all the time, but we have several that you guys can combine as well. And as I mentioned, that ROI spreadsheet's available. So hopefully, you know, as I'm about to wrap up here, hopefully you guys are starting to see some value. You know, just imagine yourself being able to teach a class with, you know, 20 to 25 couples with an average net worth of $1 million, income producing assets included in that, and they're all eager to learn from you. You know, would that make this business a little easier for you? I always ask that question because that's what it's stressful to get in front of people consistently and have this kind of result. You know, if you could add just $500,000 in annuity plus assets under management per quarter, teaching financial education classes, will that help you grow your practice consistently? Of course it would, right? If you added $2 million in annuity premium to your practice at a 7% comp, we can do the math in our heads on that. That's going to add $140,000 in additional commission to you this year if you start. So again, this is not breaking away from what you're already doing. This is still dancing with the person you brought to the dance. This is just adding, you know, a set of classes, 1 per quarter, and you can, if you follow our instruction, $140,000 in additional commission. How's that going to change your life? And certainly, I imagine that would impact your family. You'd be able to do more, spend more time with your family, and it's not spending more time at work, though. I think that's the biggest thing. So here's what you get. The fee of membership is $39.50. You get the professionally designed marketing materials. We put a value on that at about $15.95. Program marketing strategies that fill the classrooms. This is already proven. So $9.97. Let's say you don't have to figure that stuff out. And I think, I ask people all the time, if all you got were these three things, would it be worth it? Of course it would. Jeff's another one. I got one of our guys. He's up in Pennsylvania. He's in one class, he identified $2 million in his last 3 appointments. That was just out of one class. That's his entire team there. He's in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, there's huge success. It's not just me saying I've done it. We have countless testimonials from people all over the country that do this.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
I just want to tell everybody some really important issues here. I want everybody to know that I looked at Rick's program over several months. I actually flew out to North Carolina to meet him and his staff, but I want everybody to be aware that he's setting these classes up. Okay, remember, in universities, colleges, community colleges, but libraries, rec centers, civic centers, and community centers. Now, that's important. The second thing is there's a variety of classes. So there's some programs that are out there that are kind of copycats to Rick, but they don't have near the number of classes that you can teach, and they don't have all the different venues as well. And then I just want to make something really important to everybody. If you're all listening, you have a pen in your hand, I want you to write this down. Okay, here's how to put 50 million of AUM or annuity business on the books in only 3 years. This is not pie in the sky. This is the real deal. That's only moving $350,000 a week for 10 months times 3 years. Now here's the goal. Rick's task and my task is to put you in front of 1 million of assets per week. That's 4 million a month, right? And assuming you only close 350,000, and you do that for 4 weeks out of the month, and only working 10 months out of the year times 3, you'll do 50 million of AUM. But here's the real facts. I have here sitting on my desk on this call the actual numbers that from Rick's company, his organization, from the advisors. I'm looking at here, one class mailer production was 2.5 million. Another class here, 2 mailers, 4 million of production. That's a combination of annuities, 76 household, 45 appointments scheduled. And I can go down the list and list with all of this. So when I said at the beginning of the presentation, the highest production, highest income, that this is the proof. The facts speak for itself. But so we're talking, what I just gave you on those numbers, that's accurate. Okay. And so the goal is this: at some point, Rick will, max out on territories. Okay. We're going to max out on it. So you know what? If you snooze, you lose. So what I want you to do is I want you to talk for like 15 to 30 minutes with Catherine at Rick's office, and you're going to need to call my office so that we can schedule a phone appointment with you and Catherine. Okay, so that's 1-800-344-4105. Talk to a business development advisor at BCA. It's going to be probably a 2 or 3 minute phone call, but we're going to schedule next week. Mark out Monday. Okay. Remember, they're in North Carolina, so if you're on the West Coast or mid part of the country, that's 1 to 3 hours ahead. So folks, I'm so fortunate and thankful that we can work with Rick with this program. And this is not something that was dreamed up overnight. They have been doing this successfully. And I'm going to tell you this: the advisors around the United States that are using this program are writing wonderful numbers. And as I said at the beginning, why is that happening? People are really getting tired of all the free dinner seminars and the sales pitches. Okay, but they do the training with you. They've got the whole thing put together. So you snooze, you lose. Call us, okay, and I'll put you through to BDA, and then we'll schedule a phone appointment. And Rick, anything else? I really appreciate you making this available through our organization.
No, I think you summed it up. Again, the areas are limited. You know, the reason he says that is because we're not going to saturate any particular area. So like, for instance, if you're in Houston, Texas, although we don't have exclusive territories, we only have a limited area or a limited amount of people that we can put in Houston to make sure that we have enough people to make the program successful for everyone that's there. So again, like Tyrone said, if you snooze, you lose. If you're not on this call, if you don't jump off of this call or this webinar and make a phone call, somebody else might beat you to the punch. But Tyrone, again, thank you so much for partnering with us and working with us. We look forward to hearing from everybody next week, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Take care, Rick. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.